Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The celestial compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Beal. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Beal.
Greetings, Earthlings. I'm Kathy Beal, welcoming you to Celestial Compass. Just a reminder that my site is empowermentunlimited.net, where you can find my weekly, moon, and monthly forecasts. The monthly and moon forecasts are also at omtimes.com, and all of my material is at the Professional Aquarian YouTube channel. But just a brief reminder about what's going on astrologically until I bring in today's guest. We are about to have retrograde Mars station direct. The planet of push, the action figure of the sky, has been retrograde since December 6th. It's been in the sign of Cancer retrograde since the beginning of the year. On the 23rd, it stations direct. It has been at the degree. It's been kind of like hanging out where it's going to station direct since February 12th, and it will stay at this spot into the first 10 days or so of March, meaning that probably you're going to feel things opening up and seeing where you can finally get moving on some of the inner work you've been doing, some of the rearranging you've been doing. The direct station comes with an incredible burst of information, so it should be an extraordinarily active and noisy end of the week. And the next thing to keep in mind is the Pisces new moon on the 28th or 29th, depending on where you are on the planet, which will give us all the opportunity to dream the kind of world that we want to be in. We'll have really, really heavy Pisces energy with us through the end of March, and this moon gives us a power up kind of on what it is that we're going to be connected to. So do know that people are going to be really spacey, and downtime is increasingly essential to be able to distinguish between your energy and whatever is flying around out in the world. Okie dokie. So I am really happy to have with us today Celeste Brooks, a predictive astrologer, life coach, and intuitive. She has a podcast called Celestial Insights. She does lives on Instagram, and she posts incredibly wonderfully cryptic forecasts on social media, which we'll talk about too. She is a board member of the Organization of Professional Astrology and a faculty member of Kepler College. And like so many of us, she came out of something that passed for normal before transitioning into astrology full time. She had a successful sales and marketing career spanning more than 25 years at Fortune 500 companies. Hi, Celeste. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Kathy. I'm so happy to be here and have the opportunity to talk with you.
I would always like to start with, what's your astrology origin story? How did you come to astrology?
Yes. So I think it was 2017, I've been going to this health spa since 2000 called Rancho La Puerta in Mexico. And one of the years I was there, so I'm a late bloomer to astrology, I should say that. Yeah. There was an astrologer from the Florida area, Leslie McGurk, who had just written a book about Mercury and was doing a talk. And so I went, and it was really interesting. And then she did a reading for me, but invited me afterwards to come study with her at the spa a different year. And I did. And as soon as I started learning astrology to the day, it just blew the roof off my mind because it explained so much about myself, like people in my life, my relationships. I was like, how can that, the beauty of astrology, it gives you the physical location of the planets in order to connect the earth with the air, is how I see it in some ways. So anyway, or the water energy with the air. So that's what brought me in. But as a child, I loved Greek mythology. So as soon as I started studying it and was able to connect the archetypes with the planets, I mean, I was the archetypes, the asteroids, I was already off to the races. So that's what brought me into astrology.
So is it like you were remembering it rather than learning it in a way?
Yes. Well, yes, and I've been told that by an Akashic record reader
Ah, ah.
that I was remembering, yes, that in a past life I had been some kind of astrologer.
Do you find that you're well, how did you decide to make the transition out of working for corporate America and becoming
It's
an astrologer?
it just it was an evolution as I started studying and studying. Eventually, I saw like this could be. People asked me to pay me to do readings for them. So that's what's
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, well maybe I can do this. And I studied extensively with Rebecca Gordon, Deborah Silverman, and Orderly is one of my mentors, and April Kent Elliott and Bronwyn Simmons. So I could not get enough of learning astrology after I started studying. And I have Venus and Mars in Gemini and Jupiter in Libra. So, and Uranus in Libra. So it was just like, and I have Mercury in Taurus trine my Pluto in my third house. So I am a researcher by nature. I have a degree in biology, and I just, when I'm interested in something, I want to know every little thing about it. So, yeah, so it just took over my life. I was also a member of Astrology Hub back then. So that's another wonderful astrology place for
Mhm.
learning. So, yeah. Oh, and I took the STA, the Horary course. Horary is like really blew my mind. So I loved it. So yeah, and then I was like, I had always wanted to retire by the time I was 50. And then I saw the way Uranus in the sky, the great awakener was coming to, it was like conjunct my Sun Saturn conjunction when I quit my job. So I like blew up the structures of my life. That's what Uranus does. It makes these permanent breaks. And my identity changed. And I was ready to become an astrologer. And the new moon before it happened was in the sign of Aries near my moon, which is my helmsman. I'm a Cancer rising, so it rules my whole chart. And I was like, the only thing that's keeping me in this job is fear. Why am I letting fear run my life? Let's do the Aries moon, take a risk. The Fool of the Tarot card, and jump off a cliff. And that's what I did.
And you've made so much of it so quickly. I would have thought, given some of your positions, that you'd been in this much longer. So,
You
wow.
would have thought it just feels like it is my dharma. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I like, and I've been able to create a career and yeah, and yeah,
I love
really
that you
quickly.
the tagline on your website weirdly parallels mine, which is astrology you can use, and you have bringing
Mhm.
the stars down to earth. And it
Mhm.
strikes me you have a real world streak. I mean, there's a bit of a poet and a little bit of a trickster in some of the stuff you post, but it's bringing it to, like, this is what's happening down here, which is
Mhm.
what I find most interesting.
I love mundane astrology, the astrology of worldly events. So connecting what's happening in the cosmos to what's happening on Earth and seeing the cycles and the patterns. I have Pallas Athene, the asteroid of pattern recognition, next to my North Node, conjunct tightly, my North Node in Pisces. So there's someone who wrote an article who called Pallas Athene the astrologer's asteroid.
Hmm.
And for anyone should go look and see where their Pallas Athene is, especially if you're an astrologer. It may inform you something about how you do your work. Hmm.
Well, I'm sure I don't know where she is in my chart, and I'm sure she's very prominent because
Hmm.
I play connect the dots all the time.
That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's
Mhm.
connecting. It's connecting the energetic dots, and it's all connected. Whether it's in pop culture, I love how you love pop culture, or science, or politics, or whatever. Hmm.
It's everywhere, everywhere. And that leads me, I do have a question. I printed out a couple of your recent little cryptic forecasts, and if you're willing to talk process here,
Yes.
do you get downloads and
Yeah.
then later see how they're playing out?
Yes. I get downloads, and sometimes I think I know what I'm typing. So what I do is I write them out. Like, it comes through when I'm writing. And I type them out and I think I know what they are. And sometimes I'm dead on, but sometimes it's something totally different. And so it's feel like I'm playing along with the audience, because sometimes it's I'm writing what the energy is, and I'm thinking about something often. Sometimes I'm not, sometimes it's just coming through, but I'm usually connecting it to something, and then the astrology is like coming in. And yeah.
So for those who haven't seen this yet, if you go to Astrology by Celeste on Instagram or Threads or BlueSky, you will periodically see posts that are just a series of phrases. And I love them. I have a couple here.
Oh, good.
Um, the Oedipus complex, the Leo full moon on February 12th will bring the drama. The stage is set. The unveiling continues February 23rd with Mars direct in Cancer in fall and out of bounds. Oh, yes. The martial energy turns outward. Boomerang, it's all about Mars retrograde station at 6 Leo on the north node of the USA in the 8th house and heads for that last stand against Pluto April 26th. That actually was more of a forecast. And
But the Oedipus complex has already come out. I didn't know what I was writing when I wrote that. I was
okay.
thinking more about the president, but something came out after it, and I will see things in the collective that give me clues to what I was talking about. Apparently, there's someone who went to school with Elon Musk. Can I say everybody's name on the show,
Yeah, I think so.
or do I need code?
No, no, I think so.
Okay. Elon Musk, when they went to school together, and he wrote something on LinkedIn about how they both had mothers who were Venuses. He used the word Venuses and difficult fathers. And Oedipus's destiny was to kill his father and marry his mother. So that's where that showed up. And he was lamenting about how his friend had gone down this dark road, and that wasn't the man he used to know, or something like that. Yeah, so that's the Oedipus. So it
That
is
one was
about
sad.
that person. Now, Mars station retrograde on the north node of the United States in our 8th house. And the 8th house is a house of loss and death. And we're seeing it with the fires in LA, because Leo rules performers and entertainers and all of that stuff. So that was very related. I think it was the day after Mars retrograde back to 29 Cancer, which rules homes. Mars rules
Mhm.
fire. That's when the fire started in Pacific Palisades. And it's just been a horrible tragedy. But there's also been all this stuff in the collective about TV characters, sitcom characters as well. And like there was that MAGA Civil War where Vivek Ramaswamy said something about Saved by the Bell. Did you catch all of that?
Yes.
And Screech and da 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 and da 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 da. Yeah, so that's one of the things about Leonic characters trying to opposite Mars and Leo, opposite Pluto and Aquarius, trying to push their energy to cause massive structural change using tech, using thought, using words, using everything in their power to masses of people. And the United States is really impacted because it's our Pluto return. But Mars was going retrograde, and as you mentioned at the beginning, it's going to go direct through Cancer, but it's walking over old ground. And I feel like what happens with a retrograde when it's going down, like, so what happened? Mars went direct through Cancer and then up to 6 Leo. And it's like putting down breadcrumbs.
Right.
And then you get to the retrograde station where a planet appears to go backwards to the zodiac. And we start to pull the tape back and see what's underneath. Or like we've seen, it gets like, and all this stuff really starts to come out. And maybe in the shadow period when we're going back to 6 Leo between now and it'll be after April 26th, but Mars will be after opposite Pluto. It's like putting it down again, and they think they've covered their tracks. But when Mars opposes Pluto, we'll see some of the stuff they actually did. Is what I was seeing with that forecast. So I knew what I was saying, but I didn't know who the Oedipus. I thought the Oedipus complex person was someone else.
I want to talk more about retrogrades in a second, but I have a few more of these forecasts. The Sphinx, Grandma Moses, the Know-Nothings, an enigma wrapped in a riddle. You've been hacked. Well, we know what that one was. Cry Me the River Styx, Darkest Before the Dawn, Walk Like an Egyptian. Okay. The Big Bang, the Haka dance begins in earnest. Camus meets Tattoo at the Plain. Pharaoh and the 10 Plagues. Eclipse season is around the corner. Okay. Any comments about that?
So that one actually I thought that one was going to be all about something in the Middle East.
Yeah,
but
kind of screams it.
It's about Kendrick Lamar's performance at the Grammys. He's a Sphinx. He talks in code. The riddle at the Super Bowl. His performance at the Super Bowl. It was in Caesar's Palace, or it's not Caesar's Palace, but the stadium in New Orleans is called Caesar's, so that you get the Egyptian theme. And his walk, dun 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 dun. People are doing it all over. This is the Haka dance. Their Haka dance is in New Zealand, the Maori. It's their ceremonial dance. And that woman in Parliament who stood up in the middle of Parliament and started that, like it's a protest. And what Kendrick Lamar did, he said right to the president, the revolution is at the right time, but you picked the wrong guy. So he was saying America picked the wrong guy, and he talked about the cultural divide and all of that. The Know-Nothings were a political party back in the 1800s, I think, where it was a nativist party like MAGA. So I knew Know-Nothings what that was, but I didn't know the Know-Nothing. So Camus, the philosopher, the French writer, I almost wrote The Plague, but then I changed it to Camus, meets Tattoo. Tattoo is a short man. So it's my my downloads are not politically correct. They're rude. They are what they are. They just come out how they come out. So tattoo is a midget, literally, but you can think about a mental midget with Camus meets tattoo at the plane. This went over manga's head. Like, a lot of people were just complaining, the know-nothings. They didn't know what he was talking about the Super Bowl. They were bored. They didn't know what he was talking about. It's not necessarily MAGA. It was just people. But it was very deep, and people have been analyzing this stuff, the Sphinx, ever since there's thousands YouTube videos about what is the meaning underneath all of this stuff. And for some Americans, it's the first time they ever heard of 40 acres and a mule, which was the promise to freed slaves after Reconstruction. During Reconstruction, each slave was supposed to get 40 acres and a mule. And he brought this to people's attention, and the government reneged on it because of, the Southerners didn't want that. So, yeah. And, Grandma Moses turned out to be Samuel L. Jackson playing Uncle Sam. So Grandma Moses is this iconic elderly person. So they come in like these fragments. Now, Pharaoh and the 10 Plagues Pharaoh is the president, Donald Trump. And the 10 Plagues, we're only on plague 3, but we've got all the things they're doing to the government, the planes falling out of the sky, the bird flu. Please don't let one of them be Ebola. There's an Ebola outbreak in Africa, but we're seeing one thing after the other going on. And the 10 plagues was what was brought on. That whole was with the Bible story with Moses, and Moses led them out of Egypt, and they had all the plagues, the locusts and all that kind of stuff from the Bible. Yeah.
There's one more I want to ask you about, and then after the break, we'll talk about current astrology. And this one is Icarus Rising, Lyrical Assassin, Pipe Bongs, Electronic Casino Heist, Reichstag, Fireside Chat. We will find out more of the Wizard of Oz's plans for us before the full moon in Leo, which happened. Loose lips sink ships. Just say no to drugs. Mercury in Aquarius square Uranus in Taurus, conjunct Algol.
Yeah, so I think this is still coming to light. But Icarus, the Icarus Rising, Elon Musk has been, Icarus was the inventor's son who, Daedalus, that made them wings, but the wings were put together with beeswax in order to flee. And they were going to fly out of their prison after they built the labyrinth for the Minotaur, to trap the Minotaur. Yeah. But Icarus just wanted to do what he wanted to do. His father told him not to fly too close to the sun because the wax would be melted. And he did. And he just fell into the ocean and died. So I can't remember what day I wrote that, if I wrote that before the plane crash, but it wasn't the plane crash. It was, they've gotten rid of the penny, and now Europe is aware that, we're all aware, Reichstag fire, all that. We're all aware that this is seriously, this is the thing. They want a 1930s America is what I'm seeing. Now, one of my big concerns is there's going to be some kind of event where it's a false flag, like the Reichstag fire around this, and that could even be around the solar eclipse. Because what happens is the solar and the Reichstag fire was from Nazi Germany when the parliament burned, and they used this event to, I'm probably not the best person to talk about this, but like tighten the screws on the populace and rip away some of the democratic protections from the people of Germany. But it was it's considered, it's code word for a false flag, like, or for letting some tragedy, using it for an opposite thing. And what happens is we have a solar eclipse in Aries, a sign of fire, violence, war, opposite the Saturn of the United States in the 10th house of the executive branch on March 29th. And then the next day, Neptune goes into Aries. So Neptune is deception, Aries is conflict. So that, I think that's where I got that intermingling of that. So,
that makes sense. That eclipse is also on NATO's Venus-Mars conjunction. There will be something that happens. I don't know what. There will be something that happens with that. And as you have pointed out, eclipses are active in advance, so we're already feeling the vibes of all of this. And
JD Vance went to he went to the Munich Security Council meeting and started lecturing them about letting far right wing groups talk, and migration being their biggest threats, not China and Russia. And the people were there like dumbfounded. And in fact, today, the day he spoke, when Mercury was at 29 degrees of Aquarius. Aquarius is groups. He's speaking in front of the Security Council. Mars is retrograde in Cancer, a sign of security. And the United States is a Cancer sun. And so there was this crisis and decay where it's like, it's no longer what are they doing? It's like they're telling us what they're doing. And then the sun, and then Mercury went into Pisces, and it's like, oh my God, confusion, chaos, like what is going on? And so they're having a meeting today, or they probably already did, with the sun now at 29 degrees of Aquarius. The leaders, the sun rules leaders, are all coming together to talk about potentially like what to do about Ukraine and Russia, because the United States is meeting in Saudi Arabia without Ukraine or without NATO with Russia to negotiate. And I'm sure they're also talking about, what do we do now? The United States is no longer a partner, Venus in Aries, the alliance is burned up. And how do we protect ourselves from the United States? Are we going to have to go into conflict with the United States? That's probably what they're talking about as well. What do we do? Are they going to do drafts through Europe? You know, they're over there feeling so sorry for us, but they might. And I mean, none of this is funny, but I have to laugh sometimes. Saturn and Aries, Neptune and Aries. Are they going to have to call a draft for kids in Europe in order to come into the army to protect their countries from Russia and the United States? Are we going to be part of the axis of evil? Yeah.
So I have more on that after the break. Everyone hang out. We're going to talk about what's going on in the sky. Stick with us, please.
Om Times TV.
Want help with your own celestial compass? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, for Astro Insight forecasts for each week, month, and new and full moon. Want to explore the personal impact? Make a decision? Understand another person? It is possible. Click the Services tab to book a personal session with me. That address again? empowermentunlimited.net.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Celestial Compass. We're talking today with Celeste Brooks, predictive astrologer and fellow curious mind is what I will say about this. What I would like to talk about, what do you think of, before we get into what we were talking about, the fact that 2005 brings this incredible new energy later in the year, but it starts with 3 retrogrades.
So
what do you think about this?
I have been telling people since last year, 2025 is not a year to come charging out of the gate with what you want to accomplish, because Mars, the planet of action, first is retrograde, and then Venus, and it's not just retrograde. It's not just Mars retrograde. This happens every couple of years where Mars goes retrograde. It's also in the sign of its fall, which is a suggestive of, it's like in exile. Actions taken may be extreme, but also ineffectual. It's out of bounds. So there's no calming influence of the sun. So out of bounds is about declination. And it's retrograde. So retrogrades can bring delays, reversals, conflicts, and the most important thing, the collapse of anything contemplated. So you come charging out thinking you're starting this new project, and herky-jerky, back and forth, and things go wrong. So, and then you're like in fix-up mode, but all of your mistakes are out in the open, and it's costing you money because Venus rules resources, and she's in the sign of her detriment. And then Mercury, which rules commerce, is in the sign commerce, transportation, and communications, and goes into retrograde. And then there's collapsing energy there. So my point was, if you come bursting out of the gate, you may fall flat on your face, and it's not successful. So I was telling people the year doesn't really start until April, after Venus goes direct on April 12th. So tax day is April 15th. You can think about after tax day is for when you want to do launch your important things, or really get some wind in your sails. And after that, oh my God, we take off like a rocket, because Neptune is in Aries, Saturn goes into Aries, and then Uranus goes into Gemini. So there's all this yang energy of outer planets after they've been yin for a long time. So
stoking fire and passion. Yeah, in a big way. But so another way maybe to look at the first 3 months of the year is we get to clean a lot of stuff up, or we get to revisit many different things. What I find fascinating about the March retrogrades is that once Venus gets well and good into her retrograde, then Mercury is retrograde entirely within it. This bizarre overlapping of, okay, we have no choice but to stop and think.
Yeah. And it's, So, I mean, this whole, we're going to overthrow the United States government and install a the techocracy. And I'm hoping what this means is it's not going to be successful. I mean, it's going to be painful. It already is. I mean, it's very painful, but I'm hoping this means it's not going to be successful. Something I get falling flat on your face energy. Now, it can show up in different ways. Like I can speculate on some of the things.
Yeah, we'll do that off camera. I have some pretty strong hits on that one, but
Okay.
but the time period that's really important, I think, for people to focus on is right before Neptune moves, because there's this insane pile up in Pisces while we're having a solar eclipse in Aries, and then Neptune moves into Aries. Now, I have some thoughts about this, but I'm curious what yours are.
Well, all of the Pisces energy is confusing, it's delusion, but it's also a beautiful time for us to go within. The retrogrades offer us the opportunity to go within and do all the RE words, rethink, revisit, revise, reflect. I've gotten so many gems and so many nuggets throughout this time about how I take action with Mars retrograde in Cancer in order to keep myself safe and secure, because Cancer energy, that's what it wants. Part of what it wants to do is build home security. And what we're seeing in the outer world is, all of these migrants being forced out of the country, and that's what they say, that's what we're doing to keep us secure. But like, who's going to harvest the fields? The South Node is in Virgo. You see, when you have these lofty ideals, and Neptune's conjunct the North Node now, and this administration started with this, all these lofty ideals about how they're going to, well, I think they're just thinking about how they're going to make so much wealth for themselves. They think they're the exalted. At the time, Venus was in Pisces. We're going to just take all this money and put it into our companies and and just leave the people to figure it out. But what they forgot is the details. The South Node's in Virgo, and the South Node is like scooping things up, and we're seeing what, they're taking all the CDC information and getting rid of people there. Well, bird flu is here, and now we're seeing it in cows, and it's in cows' milk. But now you're not going to have inspectors inspecting these things. So what does that mean for people? And they fired some nuclear people from the nuclear power plant. And then emergency recall. Retrogrades can bring reversals. You're fired. Wait a minute, we didn't mean it. And you're seeing all of these actions they're taking without any forethought about taking all these people who pick our vegetables and getting them out. Farmers are like, well, what do? We don't have anybody to harvest the fields. Like shutting down USAID and all this stuff right away. There are people in other countries who are dependent on, and our farmers sell their stuff. There's food like rotting on docks and stuff like that. And this is really going to impact us as well. And other countries are just like, okay, the US has lost its mind. Let's find other, they're rethinking all of their partnerships, because Venus is in the shadow of the retrograde, and they're looking for other places to find their goods and services besides the United States. And this is like going to be permanent breaks. A lot of this at the beginning of this month, Uranus stationed direct, permanent breaks because of, what's going on with. Once they could give us a pass. Twice, no. We were done dealing with your crazy people.
And one thing I see going on is that the Aries Libra eclipses, mostly solar eclipses, mostly pushing us forward, had a combined impact of making people do things for their own purposes, like be self-determining, self-actualizing, don't worry so much about others, and caused us to restructure all kinds of relationship agreements. Well, I see this happening in Europe. Immediately they're going, oops, we have to take care of ourselves. But then the odd thing is, with eclipses happening in Pisces and Virgo, now that we are all acting as these independent things, we have to figure out how we deal with everybody else on the planet. Can't escape it. We're all in the same bathtub, basically.
Yeah, and that's what's so destabilizing about the North Node moving from 0 degrees of Aries, which is a world point, and that's like, it's the and then back into Pisces. So from the 1st degree of the zodiac, where we think we're just marching on, doing our thing, back into Pisces and realizing we're all in this together in different ways, whether it's the people from Pacific Palisades to Altadena to all over LA, the rich, poor, the everyone in between, impacted by these horrific fires. And that's going to be, I don't know, decades of toxic pollution, as well as the, people who lost their homes and everything. But yeah, seeing we're not as separate as we'd like to think we are. Yeah. And that's becoming apparent with Pluto in Aquarius, unearthing the things about large groups of people and having a real force. Like all these storms in Kentucky, Alabama, or not Alabama, Georgia. Yeah, it's just awful. Because of climate change, this hoax.
Oh dear. Well, okay.
It's not climate change. It's all that people have all kinds of theories. It's not, that has nothing to do with the fact we've been pumping toxins into the environment for 100+ years.
North Node in Pisces might bring us some revisiting of that, since all kinds of weird things float around in Pisces.
Yes. And yeah, so anyway, I don't want to get too off topic, but yeah, and then solar eclipses are initiating energy. And this one is the last one. And the thing I found really interesting about this transit through Aries and Libra, the nodes, and the nodes, when the sun crosses the nodes, it instigates the eclipses, these big karmic change times. We never had a lunar eclipse in the sign of Aries. We had lunar eclipse in Taurus right before the war in Gaza started. Well, to the day the war in Gaza started. And then this year we had a lunar eclipse in Pisces. So there was no Aries one. We went from Taurus to Pisces. So it's not for 9 years until we have a lunar eclipse in Aries.
Well,
or maybe more than I don't remember the exact time, but it's not till the nodes are back in Aries and Libra. And at that time, it will be the North Node in Libra and the South Node in Aries.
And things will be vastly different by then.
What do you think of there not being a lunar eclipse in Aries during this cycle? We didn't close the loop.
No, it's just all forward. And but then that's what's so weird about then immediately having to deal with everybody else. So maybe that's the counterbalance to it, because I saw it as like your little booster rocket just getting shot forward and then another boost, another boost, another boost. So we get shot out of this giant morass of Piscean energy at the end of March by the final solar eclipse in this family. And then the outer planets start getting on board with it too. So I have heard some people saying that they think people are just going to walk out of situations right and left. Like, I'm done with X, I'm done with Y.
Conscientious objectors came to me this morning.
Oh, now that would make sense.
I think Neptune as Aries is going to be like, if you think the army, rank and file, is going to go clear out Gaza for your luxury resort on the Riviera. That's part of that too. The river Styx. I wrote that before we heard about him wanting to the river Styx is the river of the dead go down in Greek mythology. Before we heard about the plans to turn Gaza into a luxury resort. But I don't think it's going to take that. I mean, that's not happening. But I think maybe something will happen that people in the military say, I'm not killing my fellow citizens because they're peacefully protesting, or B, invading Canada. My cousins, I'm not going to kill my cousin. Are you kidding? Yeah, kind of thing is what I'm getting with that.
I suspect,
I don't think we're getting to that though.
No, and I think the military plays a big role in resolving what's going on right now, but maybe not in the way we've ever seen it happen before. So, and that would be consistent with all of those things shifting. But I'm sure there are people listening to this who are kind of freaking out and going, I don't like what they're intimating. So I want to backtrack into, I have seen only really empowering and expansive things happening in all of the client consultations I've done this year. I am not seeing people with crushing, horrific things happening to them and them being in a fetal position on the floor. Are you also experiencing that?
I think it's a wonderful time for people to like really go for what they want. I don't think this is going to last that long because of what I just said, because they did it. Now they came running out the gate with Mars retrograde. If they had been strategic, used discipline, gone slowly, methodically, thought about what they were doing before they did it, we'd be in a different world. I mean, we wouldn't even be noticing anything yet if they had waited till surprise, February 20th, 2026, when Saturn and Neptune meet Aries at 0 degrees of Saturn and Neptune meet at 0 degrees of Aries, a world point. And they somewhere around then they say, hey, look at what's going on. Or even if they waited till Uranus and Gemini to really show us what they were doing, it may have been a different story. Their plans may have been successful. But no, day one, they're charging out of the gate, doing things big and small that are horrifically hurting people, as well as comical, renaming the Gulf of Mexico, for whatever inexplicable reason, just so whatever. And plastic straws, the Gulf of Mexico, Mount Denali. I had one of my things was knocking the top off Mount Denali, but I'll hold that because I think people will be interested in that one. And that one's not scary for us.
Interesting. Yeah, well, Lisa Murkowski's actually speaking up about that one. The senator from Alaska. Don't you think, with all of this, with the heavy Neptunian influence, and Neptune like at its peak expression at the end of its time in the sign, that there is a veil of things aren't really as they seem? Over a lot that's happening, and I cannot help but wonder if the out of the gate doing as much as they possibly can as quickly as they can is an acknowledgement of we have only a window we can do this. Like this can't go on for. Well, let's do as much as we can before they stop us, because I think.
Well, maybe it's the right revolution, but the wrong guy, like Kendrick Lamar said. Somebody with more of a brain and a mouth that they know how to keep closed may have been a more appropriate person to smooth talk people, because I see Neptune and Aries. So Neptune is at home in Pisces. And I'm calling the president the Wizard of Oz. It's like, look at this, you know, it looks all impressive, but when you look behind the curtain, it's, you know, it's not so impressive. But Neptune in Aries to me is like a balloon pop. Yeah, so like something happens where things change. It may not be to the date of March 30th, but soon thereafter, I think, definitely by April 26th, the balloon pops when Mars is opposite Pluto in Leo. Mars and Leo opposite Pluto. But I wouldn't be surprised. I wrote something about the last quarter moon in phase. So the last quarter moon is in Capricorn, a sign of governments, and in March, and then the solar eclipse in Aries happens. And the last quarter moon is at 2 degrees Capricorn, squaring the midheaven and the IC of the United States chart. The midheaven in the 10th house rules the 10th. The midheaven is the executive branch. The IC is the opposing party, as well as the rebels.
And I hear a noted Capricorn musician, turn to face the strange, changes. David Bowie.
I love that.
So, just to calm people down a bit, there's this giant reality TV show going on that actually does have the power to hurt a lot of people. And I don't want to downplay that, but there is a strong level of unreality to it. And as we've been discussing, there are many, many opportunities for you to get on with your life in a way that's incredibly exciting, independent of whatever is going on. And whatever is going on has a lifespan, and it's not 4 years. It's not to the end of the year. It's much shorter than that.
Yeah.
You would agree, right? You would agree with that.
I would. And I'm looking towards the light. I'm just, yeah. I am, every energy has a high road and a low road, but I'm feeling like people are not, maybe have taken their rights for granted for a while, but things are changing where we're not going to just put up with our country being, turned without a fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. With you totally. Well, I was curious to see where our conversation went. I'm really, really glad you were available today. Do you have any parting words?
Yes, I decided at the beginning of the year, and a friend actually gave me a Christmas gift with this, a notepad with "Let your faith be stronger than your fear." The North node's in Pisces, a sign of faith. The South node's in Virgo, a sign of, can be about anxiety. And the North node is an amplifier. The South node's a drain. Let your faith be stronger than your fear.
That is beautiful. Thank you. Can you tell people where they can find you, all the places they can find you?
Okay, so I'm at Astrology by Celeste everywhere on all the socials. Instagram is my main platform. I do a lot on YouTube as well. My website is astrologybyceleste.com. I do personal readings and consultations. My Astrology Foundations 101 class, so you can learn with me from the ground up, starts on February 27th. And the Celestial Insights podcast is here every week to help you navigate the energies of the week like a boss. It's available on all, Apple, Spotify, all those things.
And that's a pretty meaty one. It's like 30 minutes or so, right?
Yeah. Lately, they've been 40 minutes or so because I go through some of the past things that showed up and then give you a forecast.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you so much. You've been someone I've been wanting to talk to ever since your stuff came across my feed on Threads, and I went, "Who is this?"
Oh, thank you, Kathy. I'm so honored. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
I hope you'll stay in touch. And everyone, again, where you can find me, my main site is empowermentunlimited.net. and all of my forecasts are there in writing, new and full moon every month, and then the podcast, the weekly podcast, is there with a transcription. Everything but the weekly also on Om Times, and all of it is on the Professional Aquarian YouTube channel, where under the Actions You Can Take playlist, I have very short videos that give you all kinds of tips for reclaiming your energy, clearing it out, recharging, stepping away, staying sane, giving people their energy back, tools for getting through this fascinating time. So everyone, be safe. Get your popcorn out. Don't drink too much. I'll admit I've been doing that, unfortunately. And see what you can do to help the people around you. And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye, everyone.